Behind me is the brand new Adventure Built World headquarters, and it's an incredible structure. It's based off of two 20-foot containers with 26 foot between that I use for storage. And I have an entire video where I kind of go over all the details about how it was made and what went into actually constructing it. I did it myself with my oldest son and my buddy Joe, and it's just an incredible building. I absolutely love it. Now, there's 5 changes I would make if I had to build this structure today. They're really just fine-tuning things that I've learned from the whole process, and now looking back in hindsight that I would kind of have done a little bit different construction-wise. Nothing catastrophic, just kind of fine-tuning. Also, with the end of the video, because I'm going to answer 5 common questions that I get in the comment section that are actually great questions that we're going to air out today. Number 1 on the list is going to be right above me here, and that's the intermediate structure between the container and the 4-foot wall that all the trusses are sitting on. Now, the reason for this blocking is to tie the 4-foot wall onto the end structure of the container. The way a container is constructed, all the perimeter of it is the actual structure of it. The 4 posts on each corner end is the made bearing weight structure of it. And then all of the corrugated metal steel you see is just a skin. There's no actual structure to that. Now, there really is 2 ways in all the research I've done that it's affordable to do this kind of tying in a wall back into that structure. One is going to be what I did, using a wooden block, drilling through your wall structure into the container itself and attaching it that way. The other way is to take 3/4 inch steel and drill a hole through it, put a bolt, weld the bolt in so it can't spin, and then you obviously weld that steel plate to where the blocking is now. You don't have to do it as much as I did here with the wood, but you can definitely make that your attachment point to have that wall attached directly to your welded on steel plates. And over the long haul, I think that is going to be a more durable solution. If I were to build it again today, probably the route that I would take. I had initially thought about doing that when I was planning this out. The logistics of it though, just with having to cut that much steel and put big thick holes in them, even a mild steel, it was going to be super time consuming and very expensive. So I went this route. In hindsight, I would have definitely gone back to that steel with a hole center punched in it and a bolt welded to it. It just would be, again, in the long haul, last way longer. And number 2 is going to be, I wish I had welded the steel plates on instead of drilling through the container. Again, it's a longevity thing. I think 30 years down the road, you might actually find with like side driven rain, if it gets into here, or if there's any more condensation, it might start dripping through those holes. The silicone that I put in those holes to waterproof everything might degrade over time. And again, for longevity, welding is probably going to be far superior than drilling. I'm going to apologize now if my speech starts to slur. It's 15 degrees and my face is freezing. But number 3 on the list is going to be, I wish I had used a vapor barrier between the container and the wooden walls here and here. The reason I didn't was I didn't think about it, honestly. It just was something that escaped my brain. However, going back in hindsight, and a lot of that is coming from you guys with your comments and questions about why I didn't use a vapor barrier. And the reason is I just didn't even think about it. But it would be a great idea, something I could definitely go back and add later. I don't think I would actually be able to do it on this structure, but if I had to rebuild it again, I would definitely use it. And a vapor barrier, all that's going to do is stop any transfer of condensation between that metal surface where the condensation is attracted to through the wooden structure that's above it and attached to it. So yeah, vapor barrier, definitely important, and will definitely go in the next build. Number 4 on the list is going to be right here, and it's going to be the 4-foot walls that the trusses are actually attached to. And the only thing I would do differently is I would double up on the top and bottom plates on that wall. The real reason being just because I'm obviously not a carpenter. I didn't realize that structurally you should have a double bottom and top plate on those. Something I just didn't think of when I was building it, but definitely would do it again. Again, not going to be a huge issue, but one of those 30 years down the road probably would be beneficial, especially for as much snow load as we get here. So yeah, next one for sure. And number 5 is, I wish I had enclosed kind of the open structure around it. Not enclose it completely, because I still like the fact that it's an open structure, but I wish I had enclosed above the containers and this, where you can see the trusses right here above the open area of the whole structure. And the real reason I wish I had done it when I was building it is just because I was already in that mindset. We already had a flow going, and it would have been just a one-day addition to getting this thing finished. It's gonna be now, I have to kind of go back and do it this summer. So in hindsight, it would have been better just to push through one more day just to get it completely done. Now it's just one thing I have to add to my to-do list this summer. Not a huge deal, but again, one of those just do it while you're in it kind of things. So yeah, looks good though, right? That's the 5 things I would change. Now let's get into the most common questions. And the most common question I get is, why did I not enclose this and heat it and make it like a full-on shop? And the real reason is because this is a temporary structure in the sense that at some point it's going to kind of convert from this, because I want to build a large enclosed heated shop, to like more of an outdoor activity where I can just kind of store gear for Adventure Built and store vehicles there. And maybe down the road, I can put a picnic table in there and we can kind of hang out on rainy days in there. So it's going to be kind of an all-in-one building, not necessarily just a shop. So it's kind of serve multi-functions. So we wanted to have it open and airy and be able to kind of hang out in there too, and not just be an enclosed building. Trust me, if I was going to enclose this, I probably would have made it a lot bigger. I think the perfect shop size would be 40-foot container instead of 20. I think currently at 20 foot, it'd be pretty tight in there to enclose it. But yeah, 40-foot containers with 26 feet between would be a really good shop size for a smaller size shop. However, my shop is going to be quite a bit bigger. I'm excited about that. The next commonly asked question is, how come I didn't do a concrete pad and I just did a gravel base here? And the reason I went with gravel is kind of twofold. The first of which is because concrete pads here are expensive and they're complicated to do. Because I live in Montana, where obviously right now it's very cold, we have to deal with frost and freezing temperatures and big temperature swings, which in turn mean you have to pour concrete pads in a very specific way. They have to be either stem walled or very insulated. So now you're talking about a lot of extra expense. Just to have some place for vehicles to park really didn't make a lot of sense. And the second reason is I found in the pole barn over there, where part of it is concrete and part of it is gravel, I would pull vehicles that are either wet or snowy in there. The snow will slowly melt off and it will accumulate a puddle of water on the concrete, and that turns into an ice skating rink really quick. So having it on gravel, there's drainage, the snow melting off has got some place to go, and doesn't necessarily, it gets a little icy here and there, but definitely not a massive issue like a unheated concrete pad definitely would be. The next question is, do I like the size, how it came out? And actually, I love it. My initial plan was to go 20 feet between containers. However, I kind of changed my mind during the truss ordering process and ended up going 26, which gives me 13 feet kind of each side, which is perfect. As you can see over here, I have room to kind of store some larger things. I've got plenty of room between each vehicle to open doors. And again, on this side, I can open the doors all the way and not to hit the containers. I truly think this is a perfect size. I wouldn't go any narrower and I probably wouldn't go any wider. I think then you just kind of get into unusable space. But this is perfect. I had a bunch of questions about the containers themselves, particularly how they open. The big question was, is the single latch really better than the double latch? And I say 100%. I had a guy ask, he's like, hey, I can get these super cheap with the double, or I can spend more on a single. I said, if you have the money to spend for the single, you will not regret it. Unless it's one of those things where you only go in it once, twice a year, then I would say do whatever is best for your budget. But if this is something that you're gonna go into daily like I do, I say 100% the single doors are worth it. Let me demonstrate. The single door, all you do is lift up, rotate out, and then you can see it kind of forces it open a little bit, drop the handle, grab it by the bar, and just pull open. It's really simple. Now, I bring a lot of stuff back and forth between these containers, so I'm often carrying something. I'm able to open that one-handed. This thing, not so easy. So you basically have to open one latch, kind of spin it out, open your second latch, spin it out, and then you have to kind of, in unison, open your latches enough to where you can then open it up. So it's definitely not easy and definitely not a one-handed operation. It's something that obviously if you do this 1,000 times, you'll get really good at it. But again, single door, 100% worth it. Before I knock out the last question, I will put a link in the description below with that video. It's basically goes through all the step-by-step process I used to build this, all the materials, all the construction, and the cost. I had a lot of comments about the real appreciation for me putting the true cost in. I go into great detail making sure that I cover all the different expenses. Every nut, bolt, and screw that went into that structure is accounted for in that cost breakdown. No fluff whatsoever. So yeah, they're not cheap, but they're definitely affordable. And also, be sure to subscribe. Helps channel out, and I appreciate it. All right, last question. Wind load. A lot of people were very concerned about that I didn't properly to code make this windproof and that it might get blown away in heavy wind. And I assure you that I used Simpson Strong ties in all the points from the trusses down to the walls to bolted through the container. So everything is wind low tied in. I didn't use the real sturdy wind straps. Again, I don't live in the plains of Oklahoma. I'm up here in the mountains of Montana. I am way more worried about a tree falling on this than I am about wind picking the whole roof up and taking it with it. We don't get a lot of high winds in here. Obviously, thick forest blocks a lot of that wind down. The most we've seen here is gust about 20 miles an hour, which this thing didn't even budge during those high winds. I was out here working on the gravel compactor, compacting all the gravel to get it nice and flat. And when we had a windstorm come through and trees were whipping like crazy, moving around, and this thing didn't budge, it didn't even creak. Actually, I was quite impressed. All right, guys, I really hoped you liked that video. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up. My face is frozen. See you next time.